Hello and welcome to VeeamON 2025. This is the second episode of VeeamON Today, powered by Object First. We are live on several platforms here in San Diego. This is really awesome. And I'm joined by two of my colleagues here on the product strategy team, Emily Tellez and Edwin Videma, field CTOs. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Way better than one of the last times we did this at 5 a.m. And Edwin, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's good, not 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, indeed. And we're live on several platforms, including the VeeamON platform that we have for the event. And those of you watching there, you're already in the right place. But if you're joining on social media, there still is time to register for an incredible experience this year at VeeamON. Just go on over to VeeamON.com and you can register today. All right, so I picked these two folks for a very specific reason. The show is called VeeamON Today, powered by Object First, but the theme for today is Talk Resiliency to Me. And, if you think about what we're doing here at Veeam and the broad set of capabilities, and I'll start with you, Emily, it's absolutely a marked set of improvements and new capabilities that we've done in this space.
No, absolutely. I think from what we're seeing from a cyber security side is that, the landscape when it comes to threat actors and even threat vectors continues to grow. And essentially, Veeam needs to be part of this ecosystem to help organizations have better resiliency when it comes to their incident response strategies, their cyber recovery plans, and essentially help lead some of that initiative to ensure that customers have a well thought out, tested, validated plan, so that way they have the best outcome possible. And that's what we've done a lot with our Security Alliance ecosystem in the past 2 years.
Yeah, and you say thought out. That's a really important point. And now, Edwin, I know you and I have spoken a lot about people, the processes, and technology, and I think that all fits in very well to this story as well.
Yeah, especially where you align those three, because a lot of people focus on the technology part, but there's also where you see where we bought Coveware like last year. It was about the people and process and aligning those three, and all, of course, revolving around data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you think about that acquisition from first quarter 2024 of Coveware, which is now known as Coveware by Veeam, it brought us a data pipeline, it brought us software tooling, and it brought in-house expertise for this space, and it was really, really incredible, which reminds me, I forgot to say, we're live here in San Diego. Let us know in the chats and stuff where you're tuning in from, because this is a global audience. We're really excited to bring to you VeeamON Today, powered by Object First, and also, if you haven't signed up, go on over to VeeamON.com. You can register, because some of the good stuff that we all want, the keynotes, the general sessions, the previews, and a really solid block of content, that is going to be available only if you register. All right, I'm going to start with another question for you, Emily. If you had to identify one capability that's not what we're going to talk about in the next section, okay? If you had to identify one capability that really is an important one, what would that be that you would share?
Capability from Veeam.
Sure. Oh, okay. You can also bring in our partners. I love that.
So for me, when we start talking about capabilities and what I see a lot of organizations struggle with that we can help, it's defining and having a structured response plan, and essentially having the capability to document all of that information out front and keep that up to date. For a lot of this year and a little bit of last year, we've been doing a lot of the incident response tabletops and executive roundtables, and even still to this day with the C-levels users that I've engaged with, a lot of their struggles continues to be around how do we ensure that everything's been documented, that we're staying in compliance, that it's staying up to date, and it's a hard thing for a lot of organizations to get a hold of, no matter if you're an SMB all the way up to Fortune 500, 1,000, whatever it may be. So for us, I think the capability to help them with understanding not just people, process, technology, but also helping them to be able to document that through Veeam Data Platform is really powerful.
Yeah, indeed. And I think documentation, having that visibility, and some of the other end-to-end approaches is absolutely one of the most critical things you can do. And I'll pass it over to you, Edwin. If you had to identify a capability, I think that is the single most effective thing as a starting point, or maybe one of those advanced points in a resiliency journey, what would that be?
In the journey itself. But that's also a good thing. We started like 6 years ago already, like on security. And if I see how we came along, and especially at first in the technology factor, and then we added like the people and the process in that one. If you look at a particular feature, one I'm really was fond of is the whole thing about inline malware scanning, because you don't want to run through your backups like if you've done the backups already. You want to have that stream coming through and then look into that. And by looking into that, you have that visibility right on. You get that trigger right when the backup is running. Instead of, okay, we did a backup 24 hours ago, we can run through it and it takes another 48 hours. Yeah, and already we're lost. So that's one of those things I really enjoy that we added towards that one.
I think one of the other things is this absolute currency, this must-have table stake capability is immutable storage. And that's one thing that, first of all, it relates to our sponsor, VeeamON today, powered by Object First, is having object storage or even any type of immutable storage really central to your resiliency discussion. And I'll start with each of you, I'll start with you, Emily. That's one of the must-have types of things. What do you recommend people to get started for immutable storage?
Oh, that's a pretty heavy question, right? So essentially what we look at is there's the idea of resiliency zones, right? And Edwin's going to talk about this a little bit more so in today's show. But you need to start thinking about, your first level of defense is going to be that immutability, because we know, from a threat actor perspective, they're going to go after backups as soon as they get into a customer or an organization's environment, right? They know that that's going to be your number one way to recover from an encryption event. So why not stall or delay that recovery by going after backups? And a way to protect those backups is having those be written to immutable storage, right? So having immutability, whether that's on-prem, which would be preferred, but also off-site, is really key there. And, for any customer to get started, they could easily look at, a provider like Object First, but then also Veeam has taken many strides to offer immutability, leveraging the Veeam hardened repository, as well as leveraging some of our other partnerships, whether that's a hyperscaler or even, Veeam Vault with VDC. So there's multiple different ways in which a customer can actually leverage or take advantage of immutability. It's just a matter of checking a box and understanding what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, and this is kind of funny because this is one of those like test questions or trivia questions that I write up. How many Veeam Ready object immutable qualifications are there? And I think it's around 60 something. Just Google Veeam Ready object. You'll be taken right to the Veeam Ready database. And I love the innovations that our partners kind of bring out. And I think immutable storage, a really central thing here, really revolves around the 3-2-1 rule. And I'll throw this one over to you, Edwin. How would you explain the 3-2-1 rule to someone early in their Veeam journey or wanting to increase their resiliency?
Yeah, if you look at the 3-2-1 rule, it's about having 3 copies of data. And some people always ask, 3 copies. Do you need like the production and then 3 copies? No, production is 1 copy and 2 other copies. Then 2 different media. But also there's a little bit of a misconception there. They think but I have it on disk and another disk. I need disk and tape. It's a good thing because tape can also be offline and we can put it somewhere else or bring it to the cloud. We can also have it on disk and disk, as long as it's not the same disk tied to that controller that's on top. So making sure that you have a copy on what you called it, ultra resilient media. There we are. But that's the good thing. So making sure that you have different copies. But one thing I would completely address on that one, and whatever you do, make sure you have 1 immutable copy in there. At least I would love that you have them all in immutable. And we also have seen that even in production they are now moving to immutable storage because you want also that production data. So I think we set a trend there to bring immutability and take that and get that copy on immutability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the 3-2-1 rule, and at Veeam we've spun it a little bit, 3-2-1-1-0, and the thought is, what I love here is that it doesn't prescribe any specific technology, yet it can address nearly any failure scenario. And it's one of those things that no matter where you are in your journey, give it some thought, 3-2-1-1-0, and it's okay to have multiple ultra resilient copies. Yes, Edwin, I did make up that word, but it really refers to anything offline, air-gapped, immutable, or requires 4 eyes authorization, so it gives you some flexibility, which is a perfect segue to our sponsor for today's show, VeeamON Today, powered by Object First. Let's hear from Object First and see what their solutions are that they have for you here at VeeamON. You're watching VeeamON Today, powered by Object First, and we are happy to welcome you to VeeamON 2025. If you're just tuning in, and if you haven't registered, you are missing out. Go on over to VeeamON.com, where you can register to get the latest content for what we're going to have for both our online experience as well as some additional experiences. Now, I've shared with Emily and Edwin a little bit about the keynotes and stuff, but you know, you have to log in to get that. That's not going to be free on the socials. But I've asked both of you to do one of my favorite things, which is stealing other people's content. I don't know if it's a flattering thing if I pick it or not. I'm not sure, but
Shared, borrowed, stealed.
yes,
Same thing.
so working at VeeamON is my favorite honor burden, where I get to work on the whole content production. And when we see the content coming through, there's some really good things that come through. So we're happy to go to Steal a Slide. And Emily's going to be on the hot seat first. And she's done a lot of work over the years with our alliances content, and there it is, the Veeam Security Universe. So I know you're working with Igor on a short session, but before we get into the Security Universe, Emily, tell us like kind of how we've got to this point.
Oh boy, that's going to be a long history. So how we got to here. So number one, Igor and Stefan ran our session. I believe it's tomorrow in the morning, and then after that is going to be our short bite session, myself and Igor. So if you don't have the opportunity, make sure you check out either one. They're both going to be very great. But I mean, from a VeeamON, what's happened since 2024? A lot, especially when we start talking about our security partnerships, and that entire ecosystem just continues to grow. I mean, if we start off from when we first made our introductions of the malware scanning and those new capabilities, you know, that was a 12.1 feature that came out. So probably about a year and a half or so ago, maybe going up on 2 years eventually when we come up to this. But when we start looking at all of those different types of ways that Veeam has done integrations in-house, we also wanted to look at how can we help our customers that are already made investments into these security partners and be able to bring either information that Veeam is seeing from our scanning capabilities, as well as what's the information that that security vendor is seeing from their side of the house, and have both technologies talk to each other. Because again, backup is going to be part of that incident response strategy. We got to know what the left hand is doing with the right hand, right? So essentially what we've done with this security ecosystem partnership is we've partnered now with over 65 different security vendors within the last year and a half, which is pretty incredible. So we had the announcement with Palo Alto Networks, XIM, and XSOAR integration, so we have both. We started off with Sophos. We've continued to add on more partnerships with Splunk. We're going to be announcing another one here tomorrow during the general session with VeeamON, right, for one that's available for customers to utilize today. So we're just going to continue to grow this security ecosystem partnership, and I'm really excited just to see, you know, what our R&D teams are doing together from a partner perspective to continue to deliver best-in-class solutions for all customers.
Yeah, and there's so much to it. And when we look at that journey that we've been on, there's a lot of, there we go, a lot of interference in the room. I got to get it around here. But there's let's just look at all of these different capabilities, and I'll let you kind of walk through or maybe pick your favorites, Emily,
Yeah.
but there's so much into this current set of capabilities.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Security and Compliance Analyzer, I mean, that was kind of one of the early stages of how do we ensure that, you know, from a configuration standpoint of just installing product, that you're doing and you're following all the best practices that come with, having a hardened backup environment. So the security and compliance analyzer, number one, is going to check a lot of boxes for a lot of organizations. And that's something that if you haven't dove too far deep into any of the security features or functionality that Veeam has to offer, if you're a current Veeam customer and you haven't had an opportunity to check that out, just make sure you go and you actually run that security and compliance analyzer within your VBR server itself. So that way you can go and see if there's anything in there that needs to be updated. The indicators of compromise in Threat Hunter, that was new. That came recently with this latest update of 12.3. Indicators of compromise, again, being able to actually understand what type of IOC or what type of tooling these malware or these threat actors actually utilize in order to perform exfiltration of data or to perform encryption or to just move within the environment. So being able to identify that when those tools are being utilized and placed inside of those virtual machines, that's a real key one there that we've actually been able to enable and have some really good effects, especially with some customers. I mean, we've had customers that have just upgraded and then essentially this has ran and they were able to identify a indicator of, somebody installing some random tool like FileZilla on their virtual machines, and it's probably not supposed to be there, right? So this has actually helped to identify maybe even just bad behaviors that shouldn't exist that could lead to a compromised system. Threat Hunter, again, that's just making what we've already been doing for so long, which was AV detection and being able to leverage Windows Defender, by default, or, bring your own AV provider. But Threat Hunter was a way for us to actually go a little bit further and actually make this perform a lot better automatically through Veeam itself. So Threat Hunter actually helps to identify, again, with our own signature scans, keeping that fully up to date, and then validating that there's nothing malicious within the contents of your backups when you want to go through and start looking at doing clean recoveries. So, I mean, there was a lot of really, really great features and functionality that continues to be added on as well as continue to be developed in product that just doesn't go from a Veeam standpoint, but then also when we start looking at our security partnership, right, there's some other items in there that we could really take advantage of.
Yeah, this is fantastic because the product teams collectively have really put a lot of work from business interest, integration interest, and more. And I love the IOC compromise detection because that's one example of those learnings from Coveware coming into our Veeam Data Platform products. But Emily, where can organizations go to get started and find a little bit more?
Absolutely. So number one, there's obviously information on Veeam.com, but we also have this wonderful website that's hosted from the Veeam strategy team called Veeam Community Hub. And on the Community Hub, we have a whole bunch of different types of groups that are built around areas of interest. So number one would be cybersecurity space. So in cybersecurity space, you can actually talk to other professionals that are within the security ecosystem, but then also you could hear from our partnerships and the partners that are going in there and they are posting about their solutions and how you can, get started very quickly. And most recently, if I have added in there a new video, so you could see my post as well. And this was actually something that was inspired from a security analyst that I worked with who she was trying to integrate her Veeam events into Splunk as well as into Palo Alto. So essentially through this post, we were able to identify here's all your events, here's how they map to MITRE ATT&CK framework, and then here are some of the additional pieces that you should be looking at providing from what are your next steps or your responses that you should take. So she could build her own logical playbooks. So there's items like this that you're going to find on the Community Hub that can make it very easy for you to get started if you're looking at playing around or integrating any of these partnerships or ecosystems.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. One of the things that, one of our missions here on the product strategy team is to enable technical communities. So, by working with the producers, I can always sneak that in, and we'll have a lot more tomorrow as well. So thank you so much, Emily. Mm-hmm. Now, next up in Steal a Slide, I'm going to talk again resiliency, talking resiliency to me. And Edwin, I'd like you to kind of walk us through something around, officially we call it the Veeam Cybersecure Program, but I think when you break it down into infrastructure terms, when we were preparing for this, we found it really interesting to talk about resiliency domains. talk to me. Sorry about the reach there. We got some
there we go.
RF interference. So
That's also why I selected the FVA and the VeeamON session for that one, because what Emily talked about was like the features and we have and how we bring that together, but it's about the architecture, and that's also why you have that the Veeam and data resilience there. Just making sure that you have like different compartments, like zones. So that's a resiliency domain, like the backup server. If they attack that one, bring it down, no worries, as long as you have the other resiliency domains up. So that's why we also say immutable storage. Yeah? Place it, for instance, on object storage, making sure that that's immutable, so that survives. So, but even if they come in and they somehow manage, even they do it like physically and burn it down, you have another one, like immutable object storage for like in the cloud. So you have that 3-2-1 combined with those zones. And by making sure that you have those domains up, it's really important a separation. I always compare it to like a ship. They have compartments in there. If you have like a hull breach in that one, you get water in, but you don't want to have the whole ship going down. Because if you have only that compartment that's been flooded, you can just patch it up, make sure it's dry again, and continue on your journey. That's also what those resilience domains are about. Thinking about it in an architectural way, making sure you have your data placed on different locations, different sets, being immutable, making sure that you have always a copy to survive. Be resilient. As I always say, you cannot be 100% secure, but you can be 100% resilient. And by becoming that, you have to look at this and make sure that you have Veeam and resiliency domains in there.
yeah, I think resiliency domains are super critical. And when we think about how you get there, you know, the current platform of Veeam has a lot of stuff, right? And, you know, Edwin and Emily both, honestly, with their historical roles, they were deploying these solutions to customers. But the takeaway here, a lot of products from Veeam, but the principles transcend it all. Is
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
fair to say?
Yeah. But also this slide, I picked this slide especially because this triggered my OCD. It's like, those lines are not correct and those are like, but it's about the complexity. But you can make it as complex as you want for yourself. I always go by the KISS principle, keep it stupidly simple. Make it simple. And having those resiliency domains, it's easy because you just focus on the resiliency domains. And this is more like a technical detail for like an architecture. So depending on which stakeholder is at the table, you will show. But if you look through what we now have available, a lot of people don't like this anymore. They're like, can you just take it from us? That's also why we started the whole Veeam Data Cloud there, VDC. So if you want that second or the third copy, go to Veeam Data Cloud, put it into the vault. We will take care of it. So that's the whole part in making sure that if you have that architecture, make it simple. Look at the resiliency domains, go from like A to B to C, and do small steps. Because you asked me before, like if you just started on the journey, make sure that you have baby steps. By having baby steps, you don't start with this on the screen. You will start with, okay, I have a copy or production, I do a backup copy, but now I have to make it immutable. So let's take, for instance, object first, put the box in there, drop it on there, it's immutable. Hey, there's already 2 domains. Now maybe even connected to the Veeam Data Cloud, we have the third copy. Hey, 3 resiliency domains, and we don't have this architecture beneath it. It's more cleaned up.
And speaking of which, you are watching VeeamON Today, powered by Object First, sponsors of the VeeamON Today show here at VeeamON 2025. And you can still register at VeeamON.com if you want some more information. Now, let me give you also one more important piece of information. Now, this is a slide I stole actually from my own content, which is kind of weird. It kind of defeats the purpose, but tomorrow,
You borrowed it.
yeah, I borrowed it, or I accelerated the delivery of it. We have some big information coming tomorrow, and there's some really important first steps when it comes to preparing for the next release of Veeam Data Platform. So I want to draw everyone's attention to, it's on the community, shout out Emily and her link as well, the first one, and then the second one is going to the R&D forums. The product management team has really put a forward effort, and I love this, by the way, a forward effort of some deprecated capabilities or some changing platform support, like this version of the OSs will be dropped, or this particular capability in Veeam Data Platform will be dropped. Like one example, I'll just let everybody know, the next release, 13, will not support the reversed incremental backup mode. So now is the time to change that. So Emily and I have a session, a general session. There's so much content we have getting ready to get this out to you, but we want to make sure that if there's any redesign or reconfiguration, now is the time. You can find it all at community.veeam.com. All right, so let's take a look at the rest of VeeamON 2025. I'm super excited for this. Tomorrow, we have a general session where Anand, our CEO, will give a great overview of some of the corporate priorities that we have here at Veeam, including, oh, I can't tell you yet. You got to watch. You got to go to VeeamON.com and register so you can watch this stuff. But I can tell you, Wednesday, we're going to have some previews of some of these technologies. Emily's on the hook for some. I'm on the hook for some. Ben and Kirsten as well. Edwin, thank you so much for joining me here at VeeamON today.
Thank you.
Emily, as always, thank you as well.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, on behalf of all these producers in the room, we got people everywhere making us look good. I love it. Now, this is VeeamON Today, powered by Object First. You can still register. Go on over to VeeamON.com. You can register, join the online experience for free. Psst, it also includes some replays, so you don't have to be anywhere at any time at a specific time. It's flexible for you. On behalf of the whole VeeamON production crew, I'd like to thank everyone for watching this episode of VeeamON Today, powered by Object First. Tomorrow, we have Community and Anton Gostev. Don't want to miss it. We'll see you tomorrow.